Hi, Luke. Good to see you. Thanks for agreeing to answer our three golden questions today. I'll jump in with the first one, which is, what do you like about your work?
The main reason for me starting running my own business was that my dad runs his own business as well. So growing up, when I invariably would forget quite a lot of things, which I did at school, he would always be able to drop them off, and it was nice that he could do that. And I very much appreciated it. Probably a bit more later on, but if I had school football or school hockey or any of these things, he could attend. And it was always something that I've wanted to be able to have the option to be able to do, which was what was the real driving force. So I really enjoy the freedom that it gives me. It's a double-edged sword when you run your own business, because the freedom also comes with a lot of extra chains, but just different to if you're employed by someone. So most definitely the freedom. And it's the freedom of how to spend your time, but also the freedom of being able to earn, not necessarily all the time what you put in, because that's definitely not the case at the start of running your own business, and in patches it's not the case as well. But it's that sort of, don't have that ceiling where your earnings are governed by one person or a couple of people. It's a case of, if you can't find a bit of business, or a client doesn't want to work with you, then there's other clients out there, so you're not kind of stuck, I think, is what I'm trying to get across. So yeah, I'd say the freedom is definitely the best bit for me.
Yeah, excellent. The next question I've got for you is, how did you start out?
So as I mentioned before, I grew up in a with my parents. Both of my parents were heavily involved in the business. They've kind of pulled back a bit more recently, but I kind of grew up in that environment. So very naively, I thought I knew a lot more than I did. So I worked in a school after I was at sixth form. Then I worked up London for 2 years. I was told, just make sure you stay at your first job for 2 years, just so it looks good on your CV. And then the day my 2 years were up, I handed in my notice. A month later, on my last day was a Friday. On the Monday, I started my own business up. I'd done a bit of web developing while I was working at my other job, just because my role wasn't overly satisfying, as in it was quite an easy job once we'd got the hang of it, my boss and I, because it was quite a small team. And yeah, I just started doing that, and naively thought it'd be nice and simple. I'll get to sort of, my dad's been quite successful, and my parents have been quite successful. So I thought, oh, I'll be okay. I'll just get to that in a couple of years and be able to kind of step back. And then you sort of introduced to a very steep learning curve of it's quite easy to look on from the outside and think, oh, it's all right for that person. They run their own business. They've been successful. But there's I'm continuously learning, and it's actually an area that I really enjoy. I would probably say my hobby is learning more about how businesses are run. And if anyone's ever unlucky enough to get caught with me at a party or anything and mention they run their own business, I'm immediately all questions. And so that's really how I got started. It was as simply as we had an office. My dad had started another business, so we kind of said we'd help out doing manual labor while but we got the office for kind of free to start off with, and just literally went cold. In hindsight, I would recommend to anyone to work within the industry that you want to do, just to see how someone else does it, whether they're good, whether they're bad. At least you kind of have a starting point. But yeah, it was really just as simple as that. Just Friday, no business. Monday, a business.
Excellent. Last question I've got for you is, what would you say to someone starting out today?
I have this. I've been asked this question quite a bit. The thing I would say is really structure your business while you've got the time to structure your business, and think with the end in mind. It helps whether you're in a partnership, a family partnership, or whatever you're trying to do, running your own business. Start with the end in mind. Work out your own personal finances first, then work out what the business needs to do to support your finances. make sure there's a market for it. So you're not kind of, sometimes you see on Dragon's Den, these people walk in, and you just think, you've spent how much before you've asked the question of, is there a market for it? And I would then just process the whole thing out as if you're going to sell it, as if you're going to turn it into a franchise. Is always one of the best books I've read, called The E-Myth Revisited.
Yeah.
Really, really good book. I'd read that and find some people like me that love talking about business. You don't have to take on board what they say, but at least you're then stress testing, and they may give you snippets of ideas for free at the start, because people are quite helpful to people starting out. But when you start becoming a bit of an engine, they want paying for their for their time. So definitely make use of that. But yeah, definitely structured, and just be prepared to not earn anything for 12 months. And I think if you can make sure you've got that covered, you'll take a big stress off your mind, and give yourself the best chance of success.